what's up, guys? This is Terrence Barker again from Image Audio Solutions. We're here. We're getting ready to bring you all into the conversation, episode number 2. I got the guys with me. I got Mr. Dale Marshall.
What's up, man?
Right, I got Mr. Terrence Charles.
Yo, what's up?
And I got Mr. Adesafi Paris.
What's going on?
We're about to be talking about church production. Right? So it's been a while since we all got together.
Been a year.
It's been a year. It's been a year. Man, Dale has been busy. I had to call his secretary to get him here tonight.
Dale's making all the money out here in these streets.
And penciled me in. Right? But, yo, let's start there, right? A year in review, right? When we shot this, February
2021.
Last year. We were in 2020, going into 2021. Right? So now we had 2021 looking into 2022. Right? Have you guys seen any improvements since the pandemic? Any new developments? Like last time we talked about this post world that we were getting into. Right? So I guess we predicted right or we predicted wrong.
I miss it.
Where are we at? Where you guys been seeing out there?
Are we talking about on a large scale or individually?
Both,
Okay.
Both, right?
Right.
Both on the large scale. Like what we made some predictions, and we're just reviewing what you've seen a whole year and coming back to the table to talk.
I think we talked about churches moving into that digital age. And I think all churches are now, they all have an online presence, right? We're all trying to improve and elevate what we're doing. I don't think anyone here is satisfied with, either the productions we're a part of or even the productions that we see that's out there. Everyone can always take another step up. But I think for the most part, churches have realized that we have to have an online presence.
Yeah.
And collectively, as a community, we are now moving online to communicate to souls, right? To let them know, because that's where the people are, right? And I think now one of the things that we're looking or we need to look to is how we can connect with the audience that's out there online and bring them in, right? Because church isn't for you to be sitting at your computer screen and say you went to church. That's not church. That's not fellowship. That's not biblical. Church is community. I don't want to ramble on too much. So
You're bringing up a really good point.
Yeah.
And prior to us recording, Dale and I were talking about Transformation Church and the ecosystem that they've built in terms of having a strong online community and people being embedded in that community. It's not just people who are saying, I watched church today. Church was amazing. No, like if you ever watch their live stream and you go through all the comments, like people are in, like they are invested in. They're not like let me put on church and let me go make breakfast. No, they are invested in every moment that's taking place. And I think it speaks to the point that you brought up is how do we create that delicate balance of, being online, but still pulling people into what's happening in the building. Cause that could be a huge disconnect. Like, the subs don't hit on somebody's TV the same way they hit in the church.
That's facts.
Right?
You see jump in there.
And so we have to find a way to make sure that on the production side of things, like we're not even talking about the sermon, but just on the production side of things, how making sure everything that's being done in the room has purpose to the person watching it on a TV screen. I think that is a big element that a lot of churches are still trying to figure out. Like, great, we're live streaming, we're on TV. Now, how do we go past just being on TV?
That's really interesting because one of the things that we picked up from the first one, Terrence even was telling me from a lot of feedback that he got, was we spoke a lot about things that might have been wrong with the church, right?
Right.
But people were looking for like actual solutions, right?
Right.
So definitely on this talk, I think we want to talk about like, okay, how can someone walk away from this feeling like they got solutions? So how would you go about engaging someone? Like, what are things that you might like to see in a church that you're working with, you know, in terms of
Solutions?
getting
right.
and drawing people in, getting engagement.
3 solutions. Show me the money. If we gotta be honest, let's talk.
DC.
Hire the right people,
Okay.
right? And learn about how to effectively transition a ministry to being online. There are churches that have done it before us. I can name a few mega churches that have been live streaming their services online across the globe for years. Get in contact with their administrative office and say, hey, can you, recommend somebody? Can you, who's your consultant that has helped you build this system from the ground up? How can we get in contact with them to make sure that we are not having any lapses in the things that we do?
I like that.
I agree, but also I kind of feel like live streaming is just one part of being online. I really don't think that every church should live stream.
Oh,
Why is
Every
that?
church does not need to
Why
live stream.
you think? Why is that?
You about to hurt people's feelings, bro.
Oh yeah, we giving solutions.
No, but why you think
So
every church should not be live streaming, right?
All right,
The goal is to spread the gospel and to.
yeah, you could spread the gospel by doing YouTube shorts and doing pre-production and managing your time and your resources and using the individuals that you have. I see. I could speak about my church, right? My church will
Stick a
never.
pin real quick.
Sure.
YouTube shorts, he just mentioned it, are on fire.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, mics. Sorry.
And
so
before you finish that goes back to what I said about hiring the right people.
Yeah.
Because if you have the right person, they're going to tell you,
of course.
how to best utilize all the things you just said. All right, carry
Of
on
course.
now.
All right. And a couple of things in that. I think that for pastors and leadership, it's okay for you not to know, and it's okay for you to step aside and allow individuals that really understand how these social platforms work and allow them to give the idea and run. Of course, you're a pastor, you're a shepherd, and you make sure that everything in terms of spiritual growth and all that stuff is happening in church. But it's a different time where you have a lot of individuals that that's in leadership that might not be so au fait with how this should work, right? Digital discipleship. How are we going to reach people?
Say that again. Digital discipleship.
Digital discipleship, right? So there's a lot of things, right? But I was saying that for my church, we are not going to live stream. We're not ready to live stream. Our people, and I could say this, it's okay. They're not there to present ministry live. It's not going to work. That's why we prefer to do post-production, so we could kind of control how the gospel is being presented, right? So yes, we are going to go ye into all the world and all that stuff. Yes, we will. But I think that it needs to be done in a proper way. And I know as this podcast continues, we'll definitely give solutions on how to and some of the things. But 2 seconds more. I know Terrence had asked in kind of like things that have changed since the last time we did a podcast and stuff like that. Definitely got some more churches to work with, which is a plus. Definitely lost some friends because of some of my comments, which is a plus, right? It's okay. And definitely in terms of being more compassionate in production or understanding.
You?
To some extent, because now I'm realizing that even though churches and ministries want to be online and want all these different things of production in a worship environment, they really don't understand. And sometimes we really fault them for something that they weren't interested in the first place.
Is it they don't understand or they are failing to understand?
Some are failing to understand.
Okay.
Some are choosing not to pay attention to it. And some people really don't now. So that's where the compassion comes in. Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this, right? So, like, my guy Safi did an amazing job here, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Building the lights, the stage, everything here, right? And sometimes
it's a team effort, but yeah,
definitely a team effort. You know, big shout out to the entire Nassau Tabernacle of Praise production team. Those guys are really working hard and putting out a lot of great content, you know, from the top right down.
Yeah.
Right. But some churches may see this as somewhat of a distraction, right? Can the haze, the lights, the screens, the loud PA can sometimes equal a distraction? Can these things only equal environment, but
What old person asked that question or said that?
Come on, man. Come on, we're here to help.
Some people see it. Some people see it as
it's
that.
not always old though.
It's not always
when I
old.
made that statement,
I
realized that I didn't phrase it the proper way. It's what people are used to. Right?
Yeah.
And here's what I mean by that, right? The analogy that I'm gonna use is that let's take Pete. That's the person's name, right? Pete for so long is so comfortable living his daily life. He wakes up 6 o'clock every morning, clocks in at 8 o'clock, leaves at 5, is in bed by 9 o'clock. The moment Pete's life gets rocked and shifted and somebody says, yo, I'm gonna take you on vacation, and he gets a new experience, one of two things can happen, right? Either Pete can really enjoy this experience, right? Or Pete can say, you know what? This is a lot. This is too much. I don't like this because it's not what I'm used to, right? And I feel like in production, we have those people who fit in that frame. For so long, church has looked one way for them. Church come, they hear, they sit, they sing their little hymns, you know, they got this or whatever. And now that we've elevated in a digital discipleship age, I love that. I'm going to use that, right? We have lights. The sound system now is a little bit more exciting, yes, right? We have haze machines, right? That's adding to the ambiance of the environment we're setting. Some people are some people are adapting and they really like it. Oh my God, I love this. And some people don't care to experience that. And they're just like, give me back what I'm used to, because that's the life that they want to live.
Interesting.
And I think in church culture, especially with us growing up as Caribbean descent, I feel like a lot of our Caribbean older folks, right? They like what they already know, and adapting to something new for them is a little bit difficult in their age, because a lot of them are at an age where they don't want to learn anything new anymore.
Yeah, there's that.
But those opinions are valid. Those perspectives are valid, right?
It is.
This is where I'm getting at. Because I have battled, right, with a lot of the things that like I do in production. I don't just like make up. I've seen somewhere before, right? And then it sparks an idea, it sparks inspiration. Mm-hmm. And I think even with production, the biggest, so even you asked about like, can some of these things, nothing replaces the presence of God.
Nope.
That is just authentic, genuine, and it's an experience unto itself, right? Yeah. So nothing we do here in terms of production can replace that.
Right.
But it can help enhance. It can make people's experience easier, right? It can make the atmosphere flow better. And I think that's how we have to look at production. But some people might say, and this is me even playing devil's advocate, because I wrestled with it, right? Because my sister doesn't agree with any of this stuff, right? She don't want to see lights. She don't want none of this, right? Really? But like, I understand where they're coming from. Like, they come from the mindset of God is enough, right? Like, and I get it.
Understand it.
And I respect that
Yes, I
perspective,
understand.
but I have my own, right?
Right.
And where I don't like to see the church go is where we become very divisive and there's a division. Because sometimes people, I'll bring this up. You mentioned transformation. Pastor Todd recently went viral, right? For the spit incident. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's interesting. But people were really judgmental as to
Without watching the whole sermon.
without watching the whole sermon, without getting the full context as to what he was doing. And to me, it was disgusting. But I could see how he could be using that to actually really drive a point home, right? And whether you agree with the point or you disagree with the point, some people felt that, okay, why isn't the word enough? Why do you have to go up there and do theatrics and have a big show and bring all these props in? And to me, it's, if that's not your cup of tea, there are churches that will just stand at the pulpit and preach the word. And that's the atmosphere that you need to find for yourself. I think churches need to pay attention to their audience and kind of understand.
That's a key point.
That's
who they're ministering to.
Yep.
For me to put a bow on it, because I really don't want to ramble on again, right?
you're good, bro.
You're good.
The main point, right, is that we can have our differences in how we think production can enhance or flow with the ministry, but it shouldn't be like how people were crucifying Todd and they didn't fully even understand the context.
The things I saw on Twitter.
It was
crazy.
We went too far. Yeah. And as a society, that's why the world looks at us and says like, yo, I don't want to because we're so judgmental and sometimes without even understanding the full context, without even giving people a chance.
Yeah, but also you have to keep in mind that the church is doing what the church has always been doing. This is nothing new. We can't say that we've never seen this before. And this will continue to happen. It's not going to change, right? Regardless if he did that the demonstration or whatever. Like it would have came at a point at some point in his ministry lifetime that, you know, something would probably rub people the wrong way and they would have taken that opportunity to say what they want to say.
That's just
exactly right.
Yeah.
Also, I kind of feel with the lights and the haze and all these different things, it's good. But if anything that you're adding to a worship experience that would potentially change the atmosphere, I will cut it out. That's just how I would produce, right? For me, right? And that's what I would encourage. Yes, if it becomes a distraction. Now, all these things are good. How do you now deal, seeing that we're giving solutions now, we're just not beating up anymore, right? How do you deal with individuals that some individuals might like the lights and the fog, haze and all that stuff, and some might not, right? Some individuals might go so far to bring it up to leadership and then put, to put pressure on you, right?
I'm gonna take my tides away.
Right? You can't please everybody. If you want to be a leader, if you want to please everybody, go sell ice cream. Everybody likes ice cream. They'll like that, right? I think that's a conversation that you need to sit and make sure that you have a clear vision from your leadership as to what the ministry culture is.
Yeah.
Right?
Like,
what is your voicing? Yeah.
Like Safi says something just now with understanding your church, right?
Yeah.
Every church stage doesn't need to be painted in black, right? Yeah. Every church stage doesn't need an LED screen or lights and a massive PA system.
Terrence, isn't that what everybody's doing? Why can't I not put my church in there?
Man,
Come on, Terrence. You
got to understand who's in your congregation and the people you're trying to reach. And from there, that should be a part of your decision making.
Reach. You just said something, right? I'm a PK. I've grown up in church my whole life. I've watched my dad pastor several churches over my lifetime. Reach. Who are we reaching? Is the church meant to stay old? Or do we want to pull in younger people where these are the things that they like. Like where do we find that balance? Because, I know of a church right in Brooklyn where pandemic happened and they're still on Zoom because they don't have sustainable youthful membership to help point them in the right direction.
Yeah.
And that was because pre-pandemic, they were catering their church to one kind of person. And now that the pandemic happened and they didn't have the resources or the people to help meet the need of actually putting the best foot forward, they're still on Zoom. It's 2022.
I hear you. But one thing like we get caught up in, right? I think like sometimes churches get caught up in, right? With me doing a lot of consultations and stuff like that now, you hear that it's a rat race against the mega church, right? It's like, Brother Terrence, what kind of speakers these guys got like this? How come our live stream doesn't sound like Elevation's live stream, right? And how come our church doesn't sound like Transformation or look like this? And it's always like the back end, right? Nobody looks at like the front end, right? Like
I love those questions.
Like, where are we at? Who are you trying to reach? Who are your people? Things like that. It's like, okay, these guys got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and you're mixing on an X32. Like, there's only so much. It's a great board, but there's only so much you can do, right? And any console and any speaker is only really an output sort of device, right? Yep. Is what you put in is what's going to come right back out, right? But a lot of the times I hear, it's cool to look at these churches. They do a lot of very innovative things. But you got to understand, too, that your church is not Potter's house. My church is not, the next Elevation and stuff.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like today I was watching, just kind of going through my weekly church streams and stuff like that, just to be inspired, just to see what is new, how these guys are using Pro Presenter 7.8 and such and all that stuff. And I'm looking at Bishop Jake's church and I'm like, why do they have the lyrics in white and then there's a second layer of lyrics in yellow? And me being as dumb as I am sometimes, I'm like, somebody's really messing up. And I'm like, Dale, just stop judging for a second and try to figure out this stuff. And it was English in one line and Spanish in the bottom. Yeah. I'm like texting the group like, hey guys, check your Facebook or Instagram metric to see who from different communities is watching. We need to implement this immediately.
Correct.
Right? And that's where the inspiration comes from, right? You're looking at all these different places because it's obvious you don't know everything. You will miss stuff, especially I kind of feel in our capacities where we're not just the MD or whatever. We're the MD, we're the media director, we're
that's
the producer.
TC at his church. Right? TC's the head of the usher board. All of that while playing drums.
At the door and then goes to the drums. I'm like, whoa, that was quick. right? But it happens. But my encouragement to smaller ministries is that I think the first part of your on the road to your failure is kind of like comparing other churches, right?
To mess you up.
That could really mess you up. And also remember that the general public is also looking and forming their own idea of what you're doing. And if it looks like you're trying to copy something, probably you're kind of shifting from your vision a little bit.
Yeah.
Or maybe the production thing is kind of taking over where the presence should be. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? So it's a lot to think about. My suggestion would be take it slow, learn, and then see what works for your house of worship. Yep.
So I got a question, right? Roles, right? Like when we talk about roles, right?
Yeah.
What role should be a part of your church production team? A lot of times we just see, that's our front of house guy. That's the camera guy. But there's so many roles that go into production that we don't see, or people calling and making decisions that we don't see. That's that's, you know, a part of that process or a part of that chain.
Yeah.
What's an important role y'all think should be?
I think there's two roles that every church needs. And that's creative director. And churches, they might have these roles, but they might call it something different.
Yeah.
Of course.
But in terms of creative director, that's someone who is thinking about how things are presented, the vision, even like events. So the creativity that's coming from the church, and that person is usually aligned with the leadership of the church, right, and the mission of the church, right. So everything that they do is generally inspired or coming from, influenced by the leadership down to the creative director. The other role I think is essential is the producer, and sometimes that can be the same person, but the producer is more so the executor.
Yeah.
Making sure service starts on time, that whatever roles, whether it's audio engineer, usher, or musician, that those roles are going to be filled for that service.
Yeah.
Right. And they're paying attention to how things flow, right? That things are actually happen. Sometimes creative director and producer can be the same role. They don't have to be though, right?
So who should me as an engineer, right? Front of house,
Can I ask a
broadcast.
question before you
Go ahead.
Question. What if you're in a position or in a church where you don't have people that can execute those roles? Then how do you get the best out of what you have?
I think one thing that all churches, so if I'm saying these things and these things sound foreign to you, you need to get some sort of outside counsel.
Okay.
You need to bring someone in who you've seen be a part of good productions or do work. You even gave a good example of reaching out to larger churches that have done great things and connecting with who are the people that are influential that you might be able to put me in touch with, right? Or for our more local churches, you know who the people are that you see move around doing productions who are
Dale Marshall.
Every time
Dale
Dale
Marshall.
walks into the room, you know the production is going to be, on point, right?
Terrence, really?
Just have to put a plug for my man right there, you know?
That is good.
But yeah, if those terms are foreign to you, you need to get outside counsel immediately.
I'll encourage any church that has a creative director, and you as a creative director, you're still kind of lost in terms of what you should do or how to communicate the church's vision. Within that first week of your employment or your volunteerism journey or whatever, you should have a lunch date with your pastor, lunch date, and a dinner.
No.
Yeah, it's a long conversation.
A long conversation.
Right? And at least you should talk to him twice a week for the rest of your life there at the. No, here's what it does, right? And I could say this. This is my second year now, church in Brooklyn, fully traditional church. Now they have a young pastor there for 3 years, Pastor Justin. Hey, what's up, Pastor Justin? He wants to create a hybrid environment. So the old folks will stay, the young folks will come in and merge, which is really hard if it's not done well.
Yeah.
I have to sit with this man as much as possible. I'm like, hey, tell me everything that is happening in here. Everything that God is telling you for this church. I mean, not the private stuff, creative stuff.
Right.
I don't want to know about these people problems at all. That's in you, brother. Everything creative. Hey, Dale, I was thinking about it. You don't decide if it's a great idea or not. That's my job. The relief that he gets to know that, hey, at least there's someone there that is able to manage the vision and the ideas that God is giving me. Because some people could receive that information from the Lord, but like, all right, how do I execute this now?
Or how do I translate it?
Yeah, how do I
properly?
translate it? You need that individual. So as to back up Sappy's point, if you're a creative director, stay as close to the ministry as possible, right? And if you're a service producer, learn everything about that service. Nothing should happen in the service without you not doing. Because for me as a creative director, we're gonna have a conversation after church. Like, oh, you didn't know it was an announcement. Like, you didn't see this happening, right? You didn't know this, right? So make sure that you learn everything. And if you don't know, ask somebody. Like Safi's saying, I think there's too much information out there not to know at this point.
Yeah.
You get me? It's 2022. I mean, you know, we have engineers that go to YouTube for 2 days and are professionals out here. So
Hey man,
Sorry.
YouTube University hands out the best certificates. Let me tell you.
Dale, I have a question, right?
course.
Now, what if you are working in a church or you're a volunteer
Yeah.
and you're trying to
Control what you can control.
and keep everything organized, but then the people above you still want to operate in chaos?
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
In most
Control
cases,
what you can control.
yeah, in most cases you can't.
Okay.
Because the reason why you can control it is because they have the final say. Right?
Oof.
If you're like me, you could get really upset at them. And I think that a lot of volunteers are scared of really showing their emotions because of the judgment that will come from leadership. Imagine a volunteer is saying to the pastor, like, that's not
bro,
right.
that ain't it. That ain't it.
Right? Right? So there's that buffer there is not a lot. Right? You control what you could control.
Right.
My thing is also to add to that, if you know that certain things need to be worked on in terms of development and stuff like that, keep having that conversation over and over and over and over. At some point, someone will listen. Or if pastor is not getting it, maybe the first elder is the person that you might need to talk to.
Talk to First Lady.
Exactly. First lady, she know. Right? And you
Also-
work at that angle.
When I say control what you can control, I mean, like, if you're working as a volunteer, there are things that you have control over. And even in that domain, you operate in excellence. It's a funny thing. It rubs off on people.
Mm-hmm.
You start to control the things you can control and you do them really well. People will take notice.
Of course.
And you'll then see that, okay, maybe the church wants to invest more in you. And that's not always the case. That's an ideal situation, but it's like if one neighbor goes and paints their fence, next thing you know, the next neighbor
Everybody,
is
project.
getting a pool in the back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Depending on which
contagious.
neighborhood.
All right.
Excellence is contagious. Control what you control. Don't get too
Yeah.
flustered and discouraged.
And let me add this too. I think some volunteers they're eager to get into the position to kind of give direction, not realizing that you have to build trust with leadership. You coming into, let's just say, my organization first.
100%.
Great that you could do all these things, but I just don't trust you as yet. I got to see that consistency, that commitment.
Unless you get hired, trust has to be built.
Yeah. So that could be a big part of it as well. So yeah, man. Yep.
So I got something, right? I got two questions, right? When you guys started to talk about creative directors and service producers, right?
Right.
Me as an engineer, right? Who do I go to, or who am I having a conversation with, right? Because there's definitely some sort of chain of command, right? If somebody comes and say, hey, we like the mix, we don't like the mix, we want this to change, we want that to change. Who should I be speaking with or checking in with and checking the temperature? The creative director or the service producer?
Producer.
Yeah, producer. That's what I said too.
I think producer in terms of like that day, right? Producer is definitely day to day.
Yeah.
Creative director is more so bigger picture, long term.
Yeah.
Second question, you were talking about volunteers, right? So I want to talk to y'all about like, how do we like do talent management, right? Do we assign roles according to gifts, or how do we?
It's my son.
Right? Like
Yo, a lot of churches got into trouble for that.
a
one.
lot of churches got into some situations with that. But like, how do you pick the right people for the right job that's volunteering? Right? Even if it's a paid job, right? How are you picking the right person? Is it according to what's the strategy behind it?
Okay, so watching my dad lead for many years, what I learned from him was if somebody's eager to do something, you don't tell them no. If you tell them no, they're not going to want to do anything, period, at all. So you've lost an opportunity to have somebody be invested in serving, right? What you do is, for lack of a better phrase, you give them a rope to hang themselves.
Ooh, I didn't see that.
I didn't see that one coming. I didn't see that one coming.
So let's say you have somebody who, let's say they want to serve on the worship team, right? I work in music, so like I'm that's my level of expertise, right? They're really personable. They really get along with everybody, right? They can't sing, right? They can't sing,
Yeah.
right?
Actually, who that is?
You let them you let them sing in the choir,
Right.
you know, as much. So if the choir is singing, you know, once a month or quarterly, like we do at my church, you let them sing in the choir, whatever, great. You still funnel them through the audition process. Every time you audition for new praise and worship singers, audition, hey, it didn't work out, this is what you can work on, right? You probably do that maybe about 4 or 5 times because, again, they're eager to serve. They're showing up.
Yeah.
That's the most important part. And volunteers, all you need to do is people to show up, right? Okay. After that 5th time, you say, hey, listen, we've gone through this a couple times. You're taking the feedback, but you're still not executing it accordingly or the way that we need you to, right? We realize this about you, and we feel like you would be a really great fit with this team. Here's the leader for this team. And then you do the hand-in-hand exchange. You don't just say somebody's going to hit you up in 5 to 7 days.
5 to 7 days.
Right?
They be like, I never heard back.
Right.
You're like,
In
check
that
your
moment-
spam, check your spam emails.
In that moment, because you know, I had an experience like that, and then we had someone, and it just wasn't working out the way that we hoped it would. And now they're serving faithfully and diligently, you know, on our maintenance team. And it fits because of their personality. We said, all right, Lord, like, where's the best place that we can put this person who's eager to serve?
Yeah,
Like,
I like
they
that.
want to serve. So we found a fit for them. We put them with the leader who we know would help steward them in that area. And it's working out really well. So you just have to, you know, if they're eager, never shut down a volunteer who's eager, but see and assess. Because it may be great. You may have the next Donnie McClurkin at your church for all we know, right? But if you don't, that's fine. You just find the next place that works for them. So
how important is training then to you guys?
It's right up there.
I really love what TC said. I'll get to the training is very important. But I really love what you said because of the don't shut someone down who shows eagerness, but then you actually get to know them. And when you talk about finding out how is someone like talent management, where to place people, first thing is relationship, right? Church is community, right?
Right.
Yep.
People, and then their gifts will present themselves.
That's it.
And then you just kind of once you see a gift like, oh, like that person they have an interest in camera work, or they have a gift in music, or they're just super friendly. Every time I see them, I feel good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you find those little gifts, those little gems, and then you figure out, okay, where the best place to place them.
That's it.
But I really love the fact that even if they might be a wrong fit for the first department, you still bring them in if that's what they want to do.
You still
So you
have
can
to.
get to know them. You can at least,
That's-
because if you tell them no, they might just go sit down in the corner.
They may
and
never
then
come back to church.
They may not come back, you know, or they might just slowly fade away.
Or you may not teach them that they have a gift that they didn't know
They
that
didn't
they
even,
had.
right, facts.
Like, there's just so much complex layers to dealing with people and volunteers in church. And I think it goes back to, you know, I had a conversation with an executive pastor about learning corporate structures. If we learn corporate structures and apply them to church, it would save a lot of headache and do-over of work processes. Right? Because again, you know, we've had this conversation. Sometimes the wrong person is put in a position because they just may be the loudest person in the room, but they're not the best person for that position. Yo, I can work at a company just because I'm the loudest person in the room. I'm at that point, I'm just the loudest person in the room.
But you know, TC, sometimes a lot of churches would give volunteers certain positions and stuff like that in hopes of and forgetting that there's still that emotional, personal building, like Safi said, community side that we have to work on. Right? They're literally, you know, as a volunteer, I kind of look at it as they're coming to you in hopes of becoming a better person and whatever.
Yeah.
They're really trusting you in this process.
Yeah.
Right? I'm volunteering my time. I mean, hey, you know, I'm here at least, take a couple of things into consideration. But I've worked with a lot of churches that do that, and know a lot of churches that would give people certain positions to make sure that they stay there. And it always tank because there's no true meaning and care behind it, and which could be very dangerous. And then they would ask guys like us to come like, hey man, can you fix this? Because we tried. No, you didn't. Like you messed it up. Like, so yeah.
Yeah.
So now post-pandemic, right? Like, how should we be navigating as church production, right? Like, like I feel like Dale said, right? Like everybody is online, but everybody doesn't really have to be online, right? Like I think because of the pandemic, everybody rushed to being online, right? And that's the only way we could still connect to our members and, forget the telephone calls.
Yeah.
Forget the telephone calls, forget the emails, forget the text messages.
Yeah.
Just go online and our church people is there. How should we be navigating 2022?
I knowing your strengths and knowing your weaknesses.
Okay.
Knowing what you're
I'll
good
come back
at,
to that.
What he said.
and investing in that. Like I know some churches, they'll stream their whole service, right? But once after a 24-hour period is done, after service is done, they only have the word up. Because even though like the spirit is there, flowing, moving, they know that their musicians and their singers aren't necessarily the best. And so when it plays back, that's not the reflection that the church is giving. And they don't want that to be seen as a weakness. So they just cut that off. And YouTube, you can just shrink it. You just cut that off and you only have the sermon up. That's a strength. They're playing to their strengths. And of course, as time is going to build and as they build out, a solid team and get the people that they want in place, I'm sure they will now have worship a part of their their playback in addition to the sermon.
So I got a twofold question for y'all. Now that you talked about strengths and weaknesses, right? First question is it okay to fail, right? The reality of failing. Is it okay to fail, right? And how do we address pride, right? Because pride, right? A lot of us are guilty of, we got it under control, we good. We don't need training. Any training is in-house training, right? There's no outside training to become better. We got everything that we need right here.
You failed right
I don't gotta call Safi. I don't gotta call TC.
You failed.
Think, you know what? I think we're all smart enough to get the job done and figure this out.
Nah, you failed.
And how do we deal with that level of pride and the pride of, like you said, not calling for help, right? It's so funny that, like I meet and see a lot of engineers, and every engineer is at, the top. I never seen not one engineer, I never seen him turn back around. Feedback, The mix could be horrible. Nobody, and you got other engineers in the room sitting down and listening, and nobody goes and says, "Hey, yo, bro, I'm struggling. What can I do to fix that? Or what do you think is a solution that might work for us here?" Everybody's just like, "Yo, it's good seeing you," and that's it. Like, how do you deal with pride even within your team?
Oh Lord, that's a very loaded.
Because trust, a lot of people, you know,
not
I'm
a
not saying
9mm.
thousands will watch this, but a few hundred is gonna watch it and still say, "We good. We got everything what they talking about under control."
I think it's the pursuit to not settling. You know, I can speak for myself. You know, apart from like being a music director, like I'm an Ableton programmer. I work with Ableton all the time. I'm programming with Ableton, and there's always the industry's always changing, right? And so it doesn't just change for artists. It doesn't just change for music producers. It doesn't change for creative directors. It changes for the guys next to the monitor mixer who's pushing the button that's running the whole show. Yep. There's always something that's changing, whether it be an update, whether it be, you know, new MIDI controllers that you can use for these things. Like, you have to always know what's happening and be aware of what's happening. And I think a lot of people get so comfortable with, I've mastered what I have and I'm good. But I also think that this is the part that people are going to say ouch to, right? They're comfortable in mastering what they have because they're not looking outside to be better.
Say that again.
Right? Church is their domain. It is their kingdom. I'm going to tell y'all, church ain't really paying y'all what y'all supposed to be getting paid.
Boy.
I hear you.
That's just keeping it like real. Like, it's people are so comfortable and complacent in church. I know this a mega church in Brooklyn, right? The music director is super talented, and for years people are telling like, "Yo, bro, like spread your wings. You can do a lot more. You can, you know." And he's just comfortable staying within the four walls of that church. Ain't nobody at this point know who this man is anymore, because it's just like he's not doing anything to be better or show that, yo, I can do this. Like, and it's not to say that we're trying to be famous or get fame off of
Pause,
this.
TC. Are you saying that he should be looking to leave his church or just get experiences?
Experiences outside of his church. Yo,
But, okay, yeah,
I tell
got
people
you.
this,
I
right?
agree.
Everything that I get hired for outside of my church, you better believe I'm coming back, and
Yes.
No, 100%.
1,000%. Yeah.
we learning this.
Yeah.
That's okay. This topic right here, you could take it so many different directions. First, all right, let me say this. In terms of getting outside experiences, I think one of the solutions for anyone that wants to see their church, their production grow, put on a concert, have a date, and have
I can
a
recommend
goal,
a few.
right? 6 months down the line, whether it's pre-recorded, it's a live event, whatever it is, put together something special where you have your whole production team, your whole worship team working towards something. And you would be amazed as to where, at whatever level you're at, whatever stage you're at, when you have everyone kind of working towards a goal, how much you guys would accomplish. And then I guarantee you, people who were a part of that and was like, whoa, we did that. Even if you guys have to call in like outside help, outside counsel to kind of guide you through that process, you'll then have people who, one, you'll see people's giftings. Some people will really shine through. Some people will be consistent with the rehearsals. Some people will be very enthusiastic. Some you might want more, but you just pray for them and, you know, keep guiding them. But
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is you'll have people who are inspired from that event, and they'll go on to want to see the group do more.
Yeah.
And the group will even be able to see that we can do more, and they'll strive for more. Challenge your church, challenge your production team, see what they're able to do, and it may surprise you. Also with getting counsel, if you've never done that before, you'd want to bring somebody in who has counsel. But if you guys have, all geared towards something, and don't say next month we're doing it. Actually pick a date, months out in advance where you can take the time to plan it. You can actually have a rehearsal schedule, and you guys may be really surprised what you're able to accomplish.
Yeah.
And it'll do wonders. I'll say my church did one 2017, and that was kind of the biggest start for my production journey, in seeing like, oh wow, like we actually have some nice things happening here that if like we try to nurture it and cultivate it, wonderful things can happen. And I've seen it happen at other churches too, where they put together events and then people are inspired, and then they want to now go to other churches and see what other things that they're doing, and they can bring that back to their church.
And then to speak to that, two things that I've learned as a leader is always be gracious and grateful to your team and to your volunteers. Perfect example at church.
Appreciate them.
Last week, twice in service, the power cut out. Never happened before. Twice. Our worship leader, she did an amazing job keeping the energy in the room as the power went out. In our connect, in our chat, the Monday morning, I bigged her up. I'm like, yo, you did that. I like to use this term, you were the breadcrumbs. You kept everything together. Like nothing broke. Because, I've been in some situations where the power goes out and it's just like everything, because of the person who has the mic on the stage, everything deflates. And so you feel that throughout the room. No, she kept going. Power came back on, pressed the click, we counted it, and we went right to the next song. And we just kept it pushing. And it's just like you gotta the momentum, and you gotta be gracious and appreciate moments like that, because again, these people aren't professionals. So they don't know. There's no manual that says if the power goes out, this is what you do. She just, whatever she felt led to do, she did it. And it was amazing. And it was a really amazing moment with no power, just hearing the voices sing. And it was just like, all right. And then we just push and we go, and it builds into something even greater. So appreciate your team for the little things.
So Dale, how do you tackle the pride? Have you had any prideful moments on your journey that you had to stop yourself and say, hey,
a few.
I don't know everything.
A whole lot. Yeah. My personality encourages that, right? And I had to get deliverance from it. And look, however you put it, pride could be very destructive. It is, right? I'm happy for guys like Obed James and stuff like that kind of step in to like really help me with my production, right? Because I do have a character flaw where it's like, it just gotta be, Safi, he's helped me to work through my problems. He said I gotta be more compassionate. He's a good guy. Whatever, right? So like the pride stuff is, I think it's natural for creatives to be like that, right? You're battling a couple of things, right? You want to be recognized. I think that's a big part that drives it, right? And it's a great feeling. I don't care who you are, when you accomplish something by yourself and people are saying, hey, you did a great job. Come on, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
I've never had that. And you're like, you know what?
You are not lying.
I did a really good job.
You are not lying.
And then Obed will call you up and like, yo, Dale, that video is trash. And he's like, oh, what was wrong? He's like, meet me for lunch tomorrow. A whole list of things. And I'm like, all right, it breaks you down back, right? But I think it's just a natural thing because you want to see progress, right? Yeah. You want to feel like you're doing something. I really think that churches have to do a better job with helping people to navigate that journey. Yeah. It's very tricky. Very, very tricky, especially with volunteers. All right, so The question, if it's okay to fail?
No, how are you dealing with pride?
Pride.
Yeah.
And then is it okay to fail?
All right, it is okay to fail. I think I saw a quote somewhere, probably from Denzel Washington or something like that. That it said that if you don't fail, that means that you're not trying or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. Very powerful, right? You will fail because you don't know everything, right? And even if you do know everything, you still will fail. Right? I think that's a part of your growth process. Right? Every day is not going to be a win day or a celebration day. Right? Those failures really give you a personal self-check on things that you have to work on. And that's how I look at it. Right? Like if I'm producing a concert or something like that, soon that's done, then I think I was telling Safi, like, I don't go and celebrate and stuff like that. We're not celebrating. I'm thinking, what was the last 10 projects that I did up to this one to see if there's any growth. And if there's no growth, that's it. I'm done. I'm not happy. Dale, you got to do better, right? This is just me personally, right? So the failure thing, it's okay. Failure in the ministry when it comes to production, why it's a problem is that, right? Every ministry wants to look and feel the best. It's just not going to happen, right?
Never.
And I think sometimes it's a church thing that we don't want to present the failures or show it for some reason that our church folks will judge us. I mean, they've been doing it. That's not going to stop. I kind of feel like the world is okay with failure. And I think that whenever we do get to that place where we could present our failures and own it, right? I think people are going to be more accepting of us. We were talking earlier about one of the reasons why we kind of feel that transformation and other modern contemporary churches are growing so fast is that when was the last time you hear your leader actually say to the congregation and to the entire world that or share their flaws, right? That's not going to happen from a traditional leadership church situation. My pops is not doing that. That's just not him, right? Did he mess up? I'm pretty sure some things in there. I mean, he's 70 and I'm trying to find something on this guy.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it's there. But he's not going to be the guy to do that. Right. So failures, yes. In regards to the pride situation,
you had prideful moments, right?
Yes, I had a lot of those. And like I was saying that Obed, which is my production mentor, which kind of teaches in a very interesting way, in a like form of parables and stuff like that. Like one time we were doing this production, and I'm like, "Hey, Obed, should I start recording?" He's like, "Well, I don't know how else we're gonna get the footage, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure." Press record. In other words, don't ask me nonsense. Like, how else? You know that we should be doing it. Learn my lesson to move on, right? He was able to help nurture some of my prideful moments. Right. I remember moments where, it's like I was saying before. Anyhow, like I was saying before, I just remembered that it's the pride thing. It's a selfish thing because we all want to experience that moment where we're doing something, we're successful at it or whatever success is, and people are giving us thumbs up. Like, hey, TC, hey, that was great on the production and stuff. I had a lot of those moments, right? Until other production giants like Obed and stuff like that would say, "Hey, Dale, I'm happy that you showed up, but this isn't it," right? And then he will give you 20 things that's wrong with it, or from top to bottom, every single thing, right? And those moments, if you're smart enough, you could really use those moments as a learning experience, right? Pride is very dangerous. And
you had to have a little bit of tough skin to take that criticism,
of course,
too, right? Or else, because
course.
any day you could have said, "You know what, I want me ball like going home."
Yeah, and I had those days. Coming up, definitely I had those days because I had moments in my life where I thought that I knew, especially coming from a graphics design background, right? Until you end up working at an agency for 4 years. It's like, wow, these guys are really fast in here, right? And you're like, yeah, I got to start from scratch. And then look, if you want to get really deep and spiritual with it, if I should give a solution, is spend time and pray about that situation. I'm telling you, I was seeing a lot of great guys get messed up because of pride. It ain't no joke. Don't play with that stuff.
Yeah.
Pray and get deliverance from that stuff. So yeah.
Safi?
There's levels to this, right? Like,
Yeah.
regardless of whatever level you think you're operating at, there's someone out there that's doing it better and badder than you,
Yes.
right? We took a trip to Texas, right, this past summer, and to me, it really opened my eyes because I got to see levels, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm feeling all right. I'm feeling good. Okay, yeah, me and my
Okay.
local church, we doing all right.
Yeah,
We doing nice things. I know we not at like the mega church level, but I'm
Yeah.
feeling good.
Of course.
And then I go and I rub shoulders with even other local churches, and it's like, oh, these guys are sharp. You know what I mean? And even with like equipment, you feeling good about your equipment, then you realize you get this brand new switcher. There's already a new one coming out.
Yeah.
So I think even with the failure question, growth is always going to be somewhat like 2 steps forward, and sometimes it's going to be a step back, right? Or more,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes you have to take steps back to go further,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Sometimes
I
you got to break down, like you're working out. Sometimes your muscles got to break down for them to build back up stronger than they were before, right? That's just going to happen, right? Especially with change. For growth requires change, and sometimes change is it's the unknown, right?
Yeah.
So you can't always control it. You don't always have control over it.
You ever had any prideful moments that
Last Sunday. Last Sunday. Okay.
No, we all have had prideful moments. I
Yeah.
mean, this guy is saying that because I shared one with him recently, right?
Stage is
Where,
yours. Go ahead.
This is like maybe 2 years ago. There's a mutual friend we have where I was telling that mutual friend, yo, I think I'm one of the nicest engineers on the planet. This is 2 years ago, right? I'm telling yo,
These words came out of your mouth?
out of my mouth, right? And I'm thinking,
Wow.
I'm thinking like, oh, I've learned, I think, all that I need to know about mixing at that point in time.
Yeah.
And even in the trip in Texas, one of the things that they talked about is you actually don't, like, you get to a point where you learn enough to realize, oh, I don't know anything.
Yep.
Right? Like, that's real. That's like when you really actually start to grasp what it is you're doing, when you realize, oh, like, I thought I knew this, but I'm actually at the beginning of my journey. Right? And since then, like, I've wisened up and
Cool down.
have humbling experiences.
Okay.
And have grown. I have grown.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because if you don't humble yourself, somebody's going to humble you.
Amen.
Yeah, you'll definitely go through experiences,
God
and
will humble you. Somebody humble you. Somebody embarrass you.
cry yourself to sleep,
Yeah, man, listen, man, it's real out here.
But yeah, I think we all go through
Those moments.
those humbling experiences.
Times.
So how do you like, even myself, right? I had a lot of failures, man. A lot of failures, a lot of trial and error. I remember one time, hilarious story that I went into church to practice, right? And I was like notorious for changing things around. And then come Sunday, I'm not the guy who's mixing, right? So that's a failure because I'm putting my team in a position now that they don't know what happened on Friday or whenever I was there. And then when Sunday shows up and it's time for service.
Is this pre-digital boards?
No. This
So they're
is
not saving their scenes?
Nah, I saved over the scene.
You asking too many questions.
Right? I saved over the scene.
Yeah,
right?
selfish moments.
Right? But those were like learning experiences, right? Yeah, there were training experiences for me to become a better engineer, but also training to become a better leader, right? So it's not only on the console, but it's also off of it,
Yep.
right? So how do we define or measure success? Is it weekly? Because hey man, like y'all said, every week we're not gonna go out and have the best mix. Yo, the worship team was on fire today, and we bat in 100 for 100 every single time. So how are we measuring it? Is it monthly? Is it a year in review like we did?
I think it's a little bit more simpler than that. What we do isn't just for the sake of doing it to do it, right? Because if that was the case, then we're doing it for nothing. What we're doing is in honor and a glory to God, but it's also to bring people into the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think measuring success isn't about how good we look or how great we sound, but the message. Are we helping it be as effective as it possibly needs to be for people that are on the other side receiving it?
Right.
I think that should be the barometer that we set when it comes to production. Because if that's not how we're measuring, then we're in this for the wrong reasons.
True. True.
So.
Absolutely true.
At one of the churches that I work with, and part of the conversation was I was telling leadership and the entire production, worship team, and stuff like that. I said, there's no real metrics to measure the success of a ministry. No, you can't measure it in numbers. So even if the church is full, that's not a real metric, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sundays, everybody's looking for somewhere to go for the most part, right? We have to find out about the life-changing stories and the testimonies.
That's it.
Right. So as while you were speaking there, I'm like, this guy is saying exactly what I'm thinking, right? So and seeing that production is attached to worship in a worship environment now, right? I think that's the only way that we could measure it. When it's attached to the vision and the ministry of your local church. Also, I do think that you could measure production as a separate entity in terms of in a production environment. Lights, camera. I mean, if it's not in focus, it's a bad shot.
Yeah.
Things like that, right? Right. But in all, if it's not working in the favor of the ministry message, making sure that the message is clear and helping that message to go out, it's not really good. You can't.
Gotcha. Totally agree. So guys, let's got some people watching and stuff. Let's give out some tips, right? For those of you who don't know, Dale is a creative director, service producer. TC handles everything worship, from vocal coaching, from bass runs, and he organizes it.
Ableton.
Bass on it.
Yeah, if your bass player's not in church, I will play bass from my computer.
Right? He does Ableton, right? Safi is a service producer,
right.
Videographer,
right.
And I just push faders up and down.
Terrible.
Right?
He makes people that sound bad sound really good.
That's actually true.
Auto-tune is always on when I'm mixing, right? But Ken, what's some tips, man? I'll start with Dale since you were the last one to speak.
Okay.
What's some tips that you can give, some advice, that things that you've seen from the local church, people that you know, possibly that tips that you've possibly already offered? What's some tips that you can leave with the people watching as far as what you do with the communications and creative director service producing?
So in regards to communications team, I would say make sure that you have a communications director or a communications director that really understands the voicing of the church's brand, right? Or your voice ministry, to make sure that every time the church speak, it's very clear. Clarify your communication. Win more souls, win more people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Churches are still kind of struggling to identify who they are, which I still don't understand. That's a different topic. I still don't understand, right? It should be very, very simple, but I get the confusion, right? So my advice to any communications department or marketing team or what other names do local churches have for those departments is to make sure that you understand the ministry vision, pastor's vision, and your purpose there is not to dictate that word, what the church should be like, but to make sure that whatever voicing is for your ministry in that area, right? Whether it's the Queens, Brooklyn, or a couple blocks or whatever the case, you make sure it's very clear to the public. Because one of the things that we don't want to accept is that we're not clear enough as ministries who we are to the public. That's why they don't show up. A big part of it, right? I'm not going to show up to something if it looks confusing from the outside. Absolutely not.
100%.
Right? So
We're not gonna give money to that either.
Exactly. They're not gonna give, right? If my heart is not there, I'm not. If I don't trust you, I'm not giving resources there, right? So which kind of puts a big damper on the ministry. In regards to service producers and creative directors, you always have to keep learning. You're a creative director, right? You don't have the ability to stay stuck. You can't stay stuck, right? You always have to keep learning. A couple tips that you can do is during the week, if you could volunteer yourself, free service to a bigger ministry and just go work for free, right? Or say, hey man, I'm here, even if it's to run cables, right? Some of the conversations that you will probably hear will definitely be life-changing. Imagine just sitting in the production room in like a concert at Madison Square Garden. I'm here for free, just to run cables. Imagine the amount of things that you will learn in just the pre-show.
During the process.
Right? Just the pre-show.
Yeah.
Right? So use those
preach.
opportunities, right? For myself, something that I would suggest to all creative directors and producers and graphics designers and all that stuff. Every year, Adobe, everybody's aware of Adobe, they would have, I think it's 3 to 4 weeks of free training.
Oh yes.
You gotta be in it. I've sent out a bunch of those ones to everybody, even little kids and stuff like that. My son is 10 and he has to watch it after school. Because he said, I want to be like you, Dad. Really? Okay. Really? Right. Dark room. Press play. 34 minutes. He's tired. He's fatigued. I'm like, sit there and listen. These are the guys that you have to know, right? But it's always a learning, and you have to be exciting and passionate about it. The other thing, if you have no idea what to do as a communications director, creative director, service producer, ask questions. Send out a message or something like, hey, I really don't know what to do, or let your pastor know and stuff like that, and get help. The faster you do, the better. In regards to, I know I'm going quickly because it's a lot. In regards to how some of our local ministries are producing services, right? Some of your personal conversations and disagreements and stuff like that should not be a part of your messages. That's just me. I could be wrong. Or sharing in such a public forum, right? There's no context to the people online or even people in service. So me sitting there listening to TC rant about something that maybe he's really hurting, but I have no idea about it, right? Might not be the best thing to have in his service, right? There's a lot of small things that we do that we kind of get away with that's really hurting us. That becomes a big distraction, right? And a big part of it comes from our culture. We grew up where, like last Sunday, my dad, we had worship and I had about like 4 songs. So I'm playing and I'm trying to sing because we're a small church and I'm doing my thing. And then dad is like, all right, so we're going to sing some old school choruses. And I'm like, yeah, we can't live stream. It's like, take back some hymns and stuff. And mom had to come up and sing and stuff. But in our church culture, it works. Right? Imagine if we were doing this online, then, people that are sensitive about time, if you tell me you're going to start at 7 and finish at 8, it's like 8:30 and we're still going and all of that stuff, right? So there's a lot. So take into consideration everything. And my last suggestion would be anything that could possibly be a distraction in your live stream, keep it out. Any single thing. And also, last thing, don't let any pastors go on the stage and preach with phones in their pockets. It's not a good thing. Sorry, I just had to say it real quick.
That sounds like a very specific experience.
I know we can get into it. I'm not going to.
How tight was his pants?
TC, what about you, man? What about any tips for musicians, worshipers?
Yeah, TC, talk to
You
us.
know,
Know the culture of your church. If you're a worship leader or worship director, know the culture of your church. It's really important to know how the people worship, how they respond to worship, depending on how you flow, how the songs you choose, your set list. That's really important, because if people feel disconnected from that, it's really hard for the person coming up behind you who's preaching to get the people to listen and receive well. So knowing the culture of your church is really important. And from a musical aspect, and knowing the culture of your church, like, you don't got to play every latest and greatest lick that's out there in worship. Like, it's worship. Like, the purpose of us leading as a collective, as a worship leader and as a band, is to be unified in our sound. So if we don't sound unified in our sound, the message is going to get lost. And if the message get lost, and they're missing out on the lyrics, like, it's really important to understand everything you do. A prayer that I pray at the end of each rehearsal, even at the beginning, is let the songs that we're playing, let our hearts meditate on it. Because if we can understand the why and the lyrics that we're singing, that we're playing, we can now best present it to the people so they can hear it the way he wants it to be heard.
Right.
So that's my tip.
Safi, what about you, man? Any tips for guys in the field that you're in currently? Videographers.
I can give 3. In terms of, it's interesting, right? The two most impactful things when it comes to videography, cinematography, has nothing to do with the camera that you have. You're using a cell phone, or you're using a red cinema camera.
Those guys.
Those blessed guys, right? Regardless of whatever camera you're using, composition and lighting are two of the biggest factors in how your image looks, right? How your image looks. In terms of lighting, important things to know is key light. In an ideal scenario, your key light is the light that is your main light that's lighting your subject. So if we're gonna take a stage, for example, your key light in an ideal scenario wouldn't actually be like over your head. It would actually be out in front of you at about a 45-degree angle, right? Coming down. That's an ideal look for a stage, for your key lights, right? The other part of lighting that you want to do is backlighting, right? That's also really important. And this strategy is actually called Rembrandt lighting. You can look it up. But backlighting, it helps to add depth to your image. Depth is something that gives you a really cinematic look. So when you backlight your subject, it separates them from the actual background, right? And then the last lighting that you can look to do is side, or what they would call fill lighting. If there's any other dark spots, it's really just the fill light is to help clean up any other dark spots that you might have on stage or on your subject, right? And the last part about lighting that, once you've mastered key, backlight, fill, you can then start to look into color. Right? Color is another thing that adds a different dimension, a different layer to your image, right? So that's lighting. Composition. The easiest thing that most people will do is just take their subject and throw their subject right in the center of the screen. that is very basic. One of the things that you can do is look up the rule of thirds for cameras and ideally put your subject on one of the thirds and give them looking room, right? So by looking room, I mean, if they're looking to the left, you don't want their face right up on the edge of the camera. It's on the other third, right? So it looks like it's not claustrophobic, it's not closed off, right? The other thing with composition, it's where you place your subject in your shot. So I talked about the rule of thirds, not just centering up your subject, but then you could also look into the type of shots that you can get. So there's head up shots, which really are great for capturing emotion. It's really hard to capture emotion when you got like a wide angle shot and you're far and like you're seeing the whole room and you can't really focus in on the worship leader, right? So getting a shot of chest up, head up, those are the ideal shots to capture emotion for the audience, for the viewing audience to feel connected to the subject, right? Then there is your cowboy shots, which is considered from the bottom of your pockets up. And then you can do knee up and then the full body shots. Those are all important shots to help set the stage for the people viewing to feel connected to what is going on. Because it's not just the subject, but also the stage and what else is happening around them. So I think I'll leave that with composition. Composition, lighting and composition, you go on for days, but those are the two most important things, regardless of what camera you have that you can use. The last thing that I'd say is looking at your stream from like a producer or a video switcher perspective. You don't want a static stream. If nothing is changing, people get bored and they tune out. So even if it's a nice graphic that you might have that you throw up, or you're trying to switch to a different camera angle, you don't want your shot to stay static for too long. And to be honest, I'll tell you 5 to 7 seconds. There's got to be some change. And some of you might think, oh my gosh, that's so fast. Watch any television program, watch any worship program, and count the seconds between shots.
I think
3-4 seconds, but yeah.
I think can't remember who sent it to me, but I think one of you guys sent me like a behind the scenes to like the not the Grammys. What's the one for movie awards? Oscars. And them guys in the control room.
Easy, man.
Them guys is like on a whole nother level, man. Calling shots and calling numbers. I know afterward they had to go out and eat after that because it's a rush. It's literally being on a roller coaster.
When you're live,
big bucks.
And you're live, right?
The stress on that, man.
So yeah, I mean that's where I'll say in terms of try to get your stream to be dynamic. Even if it's a one camera shot, you can do things with graphics. You could even, depending on the software you use, you can have one camera shot look like 2 or 3 by cropping in and making that a different shot, right? So there's things that you can do, and I'll leave it at that.
Y'all want any audio tips?
Yeah, man.
Y'all want any audio tips?
Of course.
Unmute the microphone.
Are the batteries in?
Put the batteries in. No, but on a more serious note, man, I think some good tips for people coming up is understanding gain structure, I would say, right? Knowing where the console that you're working on is optimal gain, right? For most... I'm not talking about digicals or the high-end Allen and Heaths, right? They let you set that optimal gain wherever you really want it to be, right? But I'm talking to more of the X32 user, maybe the Yamaha M7, some of those guys around there. They're usually at the -18, minus 12, that you're setting the gain on every single channel to operate at that peak level, right? Minus 18, minus 12 within that range, right? A lot of people forget how gain structure really works, right? It affects every single thing that you're about to do after that. Another great tip is stage your mix, right? Staging your mix. What's in front, what's behind, like understanding what are your primary instruments, what are your secondary stuff, right? Understand that, right? When I mix personally, that's the place I spend the most time on, right? Staging it. Because if I can get it to sound good at this level, EQing and all that other stuff, those are just fining tools, right? Those are just fining tools, right? People use EQ so wrong sometimes to fix up. It is a corrective tool, but they use it in a way where it's not really correct. It's like to transform an entire thing, right? Sometimes we're so quick to change something with an EQ or a compressor where all you really need to do is push up the fader, right? Oh, I can't hear something. Let me EQ it. Let me compress it. Let me do this. Let me do that. And the simpler way is sometimes just a level change. That's all you need. Another 3 dB up or another 3 dB down for it to be heard.
A 3 dB down is important.
Yeah, 3 dB down is important, right?
It changes a lot.
Yeah, we all
change a lot.
Everybody want vocals punchy, keys punchy, drums punchy, bass punchy, but I want to see everybody's family member fit through the same front door all at the same time. Let me see
That's
how
it.
Wow, Terrence.
that's not gonna work.
You got that might go over people's heads. You got to break that one down. break it down.
They're trying to get everything through the mix all at the same level, all at the same time, and it's
Let me ask you this.
All through the center.
all through the center.
Yeah, we've worked on projects before, concerts before. I would usually ask Terrence one thing, like, hey, Terrence, I want it to be loud but clean. And he always says, okay, in front of everybody. What does it sound like to you when I'm saying it, Terrence? I want this to be loud but clean. Does it make sense, or you just say okay because they'll shut up? He always does that. But I want it loud but clean. Like,
Question: Do you get what you asked for?
I'm not an audio guy, so I believe him.
No. But do you get what you're asking for?
Is it loud and clean?
Is it loud and
The
is
subs
it
always hit me right here. Clean. But I don't know if it's loud and clean.
So then you need to maybe figure out what you
What is
really want to
loud?
ask him.
I want it loud and clean.
Yeah, okay. But what does loud and clean mean to you? What does that sound? What does that sonically sound like to you?
4 years, 5, 6, 8 years, 7 years ago, went on a family vacation in Branson,
Missouri.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's a traveler. He's a traveling man.
Okay, we got to talk.
Listen, I work in entertainment, so I know that's the number one entertainment capital.
Went there for
right
a week
there.
with the family and we went into this mega church. Maybe like 10 or 15,000 people. Huge. Right? That was the first time I've heard a mix loud, but it was very clean. But the mix, it sounded like it was right here. No feedback, no distortion or anything like that. And I was like, I really like that. How? It was clean. Everything was right where, and it was right here. And I felt it. There was no empty spots. And all I did for that service is just walk around in an amazement, like, what is
It was a church?
a church?
Okay, that's
A
lit.
big church. And that's why I'm asking Terrence, how can we get loud but clean? I don't know.
I just want to point out, like, usually, so Branson, Missouri, the reason why I know it's the literally the number one entertainment capital of the world. It's not Vegas.
Well, I've learned it. Yes.
Right?
Yes,
It's not
you're
Vegas.
right.
It's Branson, Missouri, right?
Yeah.
And so when you go to places like Nashville,
Of course.
like Austin, Texas,
Yes.
like Vegas, like LA, and a lot of these churches, these volunteers are actually high-level professionals. Right? So like I know in Nashville, the people that serve at churches, they're like
Guys.
The guys.
Sorry, Terrence.
And so for that, when you experience that, these are people who know what they're doing. So for them to mix in a church for how much people was at that church?
10, 15,000 people. So a lot of people, it's a huge, honestly,
They're
huge.
used to mixing arena tours. So 15,000 people is light for them if they're doing a sold out show of 40,000 people at, a football arena. Right? And especially if it's country music. Country music is the highest grossing industry when it comes to touring
Facts.
and sales. Right? That's
a fact.
just the business side of it.
Yeah.
Now, right? So they already know how to mix for 65,000 people.
It was so loud. Anyhow, we'll talk about it. It's so clean,
You
Terrence.
see, the man ain't answer my question. I got people watching this. They're gonna say, "Well, Dale ain't answer if Terrence delivered." What he was asking for.
Nah, but he always does. I think one of the great things with Terrence is that whenever we work on projects, he's always willing to, hey, Dale, he's always checking in. And I appreciate that so much. Hey, Dale, is this good?
1,000%.
Like, and I'm like, well, you're mixing. He's like, no, but what you're producing,
right.
like, what is that sound? To me, that speaks volumes. So whenever the opportunity comes up for something to happen or on a gig or something like that, it's the first guy.
Facts.
Because even if, some people might not think he's the best, just the ability to work with him, that comfort, it means something.
And honestly,
right?
that holds more value. And the farther you go, you're always gonna get more calls if people can say like, "Yo, you're easy to work with." Like when I do certain gigs, it's just like, "Yo, you don't show up smelling like weed," or "I don't hear you got no problems having."
Where you doing these gigs, brother?
Going, TC?
Which church is this?
We talk about church or production.
Yo, there's some churches that have told me that. Like, y'all don't hear nothing about you messing around with the women. Like, you don't smell like weed. Like, yo, how you present yourself, that brings value.
Right.
The integrity you bring with you, that brings value. But again, if you've never grown up in that environment, you don't usually choose to aspire to be that. Like, you just do what everybody else is doing. So, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, Dale, is in those two things that I told you, right?
Okay.
All right. How do I get it loud, but I still get it clean, right? It's gain staging and then staging the mix, right? The things that I want up front, in your face, the things that I want behind, right? And then from there, like a lot of the churches that I go into to fix audio problems, I wipe the board and do those same two things, right?
Seen that.
To EQ and all of that's finer tuning, right? That's to put emphasis on stuff. Compression is to put emphasis on things or keep things in a certain place or pocket, right? Controlling dynamics and understanding it. But if you can master gain staging and staging the mix, people all say, man, this thing sounds way better than before. And you
you really do anything as much.
you did 90%, right? The other 10% is all the adding sauce on it. Right. But if my guys could understand that and really get that down, because we know, right? We all try to stream in stereo sometimes, right? And sometimes we get mono. And what happens? Your whole mix collapse, right? It's like things just disappear. Right? But, oh, wow, in stereo, we can hear everything. But once you drop it down to mono, it's like stuff just disappears. Why, right? Because your staging is off. All right?
I believe you, Terrence.
Appreciate you, man.
Do you, to add a question to that is, do you feel like in churches now, even with all the resources and tools, there's still a lot of people being incapable of completing the task due to lack of technical skill?
I think sometimes the foundation, understanding mixing foundations, like the principles, right? I think they get caught up in the tech, right? Oh, yo, this 1176, this that, this EQ, this compressor. Yo, did you try the API? Did you do this? And then when they talk all these terms and all this stuff, and they throw all this stuff on there, what does it sound like?
So is that a yes?
I think sometimes people's cups are full and they got to empty their cups to receive new information. And the information is out there. It's very accessible. It's just a matter of, talked about pride, you getting some humility and understanding that there might be different strategies, different ways to skin a cat that might be better than what you're currently doing. And sometimes we come across people that their cups are full. So, I mean, nothing you can do about that.
Right.
Hey, but that's all the time we have. Yo, we want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank Dale. I want to thank my man TC. I want to thank Safi. Yep. All these guys are a part of the Image Audio Solutions family. If you guys got any questions, feel free to comment.
Write a comment.
Subscribe.
Hit that bell.
Hit that bell. We want to thank you guys for joining us. And definitely reach out to us. We'll love to continue this conversation with you guys.
Yeah. Peace. Cut. That's it. All right.